Movies. The average person can be inspired by them. They can make us laugh. Movies can keep us on the edge of our seat, and so much more. Maddie's Movie Mix is a podcast for movie enthusiasts of all kinds. We hope you enjoy the show.
Wait. Weighing in at 100 and... Weighing in at 100 and... Matt Logan!
Yes, we both had the same problem. You.
So what now? Where's the stuff?
Listen! You smell something?
Yippee-ki-yay, this is Tyler Peterson.
Send me all the feels.
All
sad,
of them?
all of them. Sad, guilt.
Did you feel happy?
I did feel happy. Not super happy.
Yeah.
Like a couple times I was like, oh, good.
Yeah, I
never
felt like, gleeful.
No.
That was that emotion I had in this film.
No. It was The Last Duel.
A time with scoundrels.
And it was the last time I'll see it.
That's right. That sounds about right to me as well.
However, when we get to the scores, I gave it some pretty decent scores, I feel, because I think it's a period piece.
Yep.
It's predictable then, I guess, is probably a
You can
way.
do your research going into it. That's like watching the Titanic. You know how the story is going to end.
Right. Exactly. So you don't have to be like, you don't really wonder what's going to happen. As far as, certain specific things you do wonder. I did like how they broke it up into 3 parts.
I thought that was fantastic.
That was like a saving grace as far as the boredom goes.
Yeah. However, when I first, I think I watched the trailer once. So when I said Act 1, I was like, oh, so this is going to be, it was a 2.5 hour film. So I was like, all right, so it's going to be like a play. And then when I saw Act 2, it's like, oh, we're going back.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the experience was completely wasted.
It didn't do very well in the box office.
No.
23.5 million.
I had a hard time even going to it's been out for 3 weeks. It was October 25th, I think it released.
It released at the Venice Film Festival on September 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in the United States, the 15th of October.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
But still,
and that's what I was thinking too. Like I'm thinking, like, okay, it feels like it's been out a long, long time because it's like showing in one theater.
That's right.
And like literally one time today.
Yeah,
I went insane. Just today.
Yeah,
and they had one time in the whole city of Rochester with 3 big theaters. This was showing one time, and it came out 3 weeks ago.
And what's odd is you went to a different theater because I watched it on Monday. And it was only showing in one theater, but it was a different one.
Sure.
So it was, to me, just really odd how these movies, or how this movie released and how theaters were handling it.
Maybe they were chatting and like, we did really bad. You try it.
It's off on you now.
I like period pieces for the most part because I like history.
Yep.
There was some filming locations in this. I looked up. I'm like, that looks familiar to me.
Right.
I've been to Dublin.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of locations in Dublin that they did.
I'm very excited. I'm very pleased.
I didn't write down the details, I guess, when I was researching it, but I was pretty impressed with the locations, though. That was fun. It was real. I felt like, this is how it would be.
So should we rate it?
Should we get into it? I don't know. I mean, sure. I guess we can. Let's rate it. Let's get into the ratings. Being a Ridley Scott film,
right?
I looked at it like, okay, he's getting to the age where he's just going to do what he wants to do.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
No.
But when you have $100 million budget and it does $23 million,
it's not a good sign for your future.
He's not going to be able to do what he wants to do.
Right. You got to.
This is it. It's over. Like, we need to make a little money.
Yeah, and casting wise, I thought he got some. Adam Driver is phenomenal. He's very emotional.
He's a good actor.
Yeah. Matt Damon, another phenomenal one. No,
What?
I don't know.
Jason. Isn't his name Jason?
I think that's how he was born.
Dun-dun-dun.
Ben Affleck. I mean, there were some phenomenal actors in here, and so I mean, he had the people to be able to play the roles well.
He did. The thing that was interesting, Jodie, the woman, I really wanted to cheer her on.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I needed to cheer her on and, support, like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
I don't know if that makes sense, but because you knew the story going into it, kind of where it was at, what it looked like, essentially, not having the details, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not a really super front actress, I guess maybe is how I would say it. She's got a lot of like really good supporting roles.
Yeah.
She's been in the background in a lot of things, including Rey's mom in one of the Star Wars.
Oh, really?
You talk a minute.
Rey's mom? We never met Rey's.
Was it Rogue
One?
The Rise of Skywalker. She appeared as Rey's mother in a flashback.
Okay.
I kind of remember that a little bit. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Yeah.
But, which is, 3 years ago? Maybe? 2?
2?
Yeah, it must have been 2. So I kind of remember the flashback. So that was Rey's mom.
Okay.
In the flashback. So that was a pretty, recognizable role, but not a front
big
actor.
one.
Yeah. A couple other ones that she did, but I didn't really know who she was. I wasn't, I didn't know who she was, but I was very impressed by her ability.
Yeah. She did her, man, we're just going to do a brief overview of everything.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed because, again, it was shot in 3 acts, with the acts being the different people's, each protagonist's perspective. I thought it was incredible how the range she had on her facial expressions to be able to tell the story that she was telling in that certain act.
Phenomenal.
Like, I was like, this makes sense. Like, because she's acting. Yeah, she's acting in a way where she's telling this other person's truth, and you believed that her character was an accurate portrayal. So say if it was, Jean's truth about being a happy marriage, that's really how I felt during his act. You felt like she was happy too. Like, that was when I was going through the first act, oh, this seems like a happy marriage. It seems to be going well. And
there's a couple little hints in there, but but that's normal.
Yeah.
But yes, 100% agree with you.
And then you get to hers, and obviously her demeanor and aura changes, and you can really tell that from her. And I was incredibly impressed by that.
Absolutely. And what I walked out of there thinking, like, I'm kind of a wuss.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. I'm not kidding. Like, I felt this is a powerful person.
Right.
This lady and what she did for that time period.
Insane.
Good.
Yeah.
And I felt like I need to stand up a little bit more for what really appears to be the right and the wrong thing to do.
Right.
Like, I felt, I mean, I was having flashbacks of all these things, like moments of my life, and I'm thinking, like, I should have stood up there. I should have, That's, I think, where all the feels come in on this movie, too, for me.
Yeah, I texted my wife afterwards. It's like, my gosh, if there's ever a time where I do something stupid or I'm not standing up for something, like, poke me or nudge me, because it's just not done enough. It was inspirational in that way. I thought,
Megan, throat punch him.
That's but make sure I can still do things afterwards.
Yeah, not real hard ones.
So I thought that was incredible. Matt Damon and facial hair was kind of funky. Did you know that he can't actually grow facial hair?
I'm not surprised, because I've never seen him like in any of the
super
actual
baby
real life.
smooth.
Yeah, baby face.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He got rashes because they had to put those fake beards on him, and he had to ice his face after every scene because he got the rashes. So this man should not have any facial hair, but or beard hair. But
Yeah.
he took one for the team.
He's probably wondering what it's like to have facial hair, and he had his opportunity, and he's like, I'm
Never
glad
again.
I can't grow it.
That's right.
I'm glad.
I don't even have to shave.
Let's work backwards on this one. Let's do an
Overall entertainment.
Yeah, let's go right from our our list.
And now, a quick break for your ears if you're watching, and your eyes if you're... Wait, did I get that right?
I don't want to be too type A on it, but overall entertainment value. I want to just throw out there right away to you, Tyler, 2.7.
See, I enjoyed the story being told. I was really intrigued, so I gave it we'll talk about it. I gave it a
For
4.3
entertainment value?
For
overall entertainment.
And I think, I guess...
You enjoy history more than I do.
Well, I think I was entertained with how the story was told. I really enjoyed... I thought, I haven't seen a movie like this where they do 3 different acts, 3 different truths, going through each person's story. And so I was really entertained by that. And so I remember by getting to the second or third act, I was like, how is this going to be portrayed in this scene? And so I was entertained and intrigued by it. There was, the story was slow at times, and there was things that I didn't like. But again, and that's the hard part, is I don't know if it being a historical piece. I mean, it's probably not one I'm going to watch again. But for one time watching and understanding the concept of the story, I was entertained. If I were to watch it again, I would probably rate it lower. But for a first time viewing, I was entertained by the story and how it was shot with the 3 acts.
Good. You're part of that 23 million then. I mean, I paid to get in, obviously, too. But yeah. I just, the entertainment value for me, the barometer that I generally use is, do I want it to add it to my collection?
True.
Right? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest in adding it to my collection.
That's true.
And so that, to me, I loved the story.
Yeah.
I loved the way they did the story.
Yep.
But a film, to me, in a situation like this, is it still has to be entertaining.
Right.
But also, I don't want a whole lot of creative license taken on changing the story either.
Right.
So that's a difficult line to walk.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
It's super, yeah. But the saving grace was the chapters or the acts or whatever.
Yeah.
The 3 different perspectives, and it made me reflect a little bit personally too, he said, she said, and the truth type thing, right? Like, there's 3 perspectives here, none of which are the truth.
Right.
It's still different perspectives. They're each of them are parts of the truth.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed when they started the acts. They did, they did the name. So they did, they did Jacques Le Gris, according to his truth.
Yes.
And so they really made that statement at the beginning of the act. This is how this person perceived actions of what happened.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought that it's just, again, one of those things I have not seen in a movie.
It wasn't poorly done.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But just that, do I want to stay in here or do I want to go take a leak? I mean, just to be right,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't, but that's what I was thinking,
right.
That, so, yeah.
Does that
Keep
lead
going.
us to the score?
Keep going.
Let's do it. The score was interesting. I gave it a 3.8. There wasn't much of a score, which at times I wish it had more. The beginning scene of the fight scene, I did enjoy that they took out the music and then focused on the sound being from the battle, and so you heard the clinking, you heard the yelling, and the whatnot. So I enjoyed that segment, but I feel like they did that too often throughout the film. And when you're not battling and it's just people talking or people having conversations, it left me wanting something in the background or for me to be pulled into the story. Those wide pan shots where they were doing, of establishing the shots of, the castle or the fiefdom, and they did the music I really enjoyed. It had, more of a Scottish feel, and I wish they would have pushed that throughout more of the film, because I thought it could have been done. I don't know if this is the score. I thought it was interesting that when the characters sung, they did native French, which I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so it was hard because they really didn't do that anywhere else.
Right.
And
it was confusing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, are they singing French, or am I just not understanding what they're saying? Because French is, when I hear French, that's usually how I feel. Is like, should I understand what you're saying, or are you speaking a different language?
Right.
And so that's how I felt. And so, yeah, a lot of it left me for more. Again, the saving grace is that when music was involved, I really did enjoy it. But the issue is that it left me wanting more, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, it wasn't really consistent throughout the film.
Right.
I felt it was pieced together, I suppose.
Yeah.
The thing, and I don't know if, I have to wonder, they had a lot of pandemic restrictions.
Yeah.
Which
ironically, this was set right after, the Black Plague.
Right. Because they talk about his wife and kid dying,
right,
and everything. So yeah, I know. That's the first thing I'm like, oh yeah, wow.
Wow, the parallels to 2021.
Exactly. And so and so I'm thinking, like, because the music was like pieced together, I felt. I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt that way. And so I was thinking, like, did that have something to do with the pandemic? Like, are they not able to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't know, but there's no answer to that. I'm sure no one would even admit to that. And
so I've watched the movie. It's a documentary, Score, and it talks about very nerdy. It's about composers and how they come up with music. Well, if you ever want appreciation in score, there's actually a whole movie just called Score. And typically, I think they have access to the scenes, which is how they develop the score, or they see certain scenes, and then that's how they develop it. And they work with the director of saying, well, where are you wanting things, and what kind of feel are you going for? And so, yeah, I guess tying into you of how it was, pieced together, it seems odd to me that, I don't know if he didn't have access because of the pandemic, but I feel like that would be a thing that would be, I guess, unless you don't have the full orchestra or something like that, you'd feel like you could watch the movie and then do that part afterwards, or get stuff built together and then do the score.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little confusing.
You know what other film he composes, or what movie series?
I didn't look it up. I didn't look up who did it because I wasn't impressed with it at all, and I'm like, I don't even want to know.
Yeah. His name is Harry Gregson Williams, and he did the Shrek.
No way.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, on that one, the only song I can remember is the Smash Mouth "Somebody Once," and then it's coming out of the outhouse. Other than that, I can't remember the score. But Shrek, that's the one song that sticks out to me, so I thought it was funny that he did.
That is.
And he's also going to do the House of Gucci.
Okay.
That's coming out.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Alongside Adam Driver, that's in this movie.
Right. It does doing this podcast and looking at all these things, there's a lot of things that tie together.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a clan. Like, this is a tribe. This is, these people, and that's okay. I'm not saying
Absolutely.
That's bad, but it is clear, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like, they work together as much as they can if they get along, and they work well together, and that's great.
Yeah.
But it's very evident now to me.
Yeah.
Like, you see this, like, chain. Ridley Scott, look at all the things that he did and all these same actors that he's done things with.
Right. And even, I mean, you look at the two, I mean, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. I mean, how they got into film was the first movie they did together and wrote together.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, it was very interesting. Ben Affleck was supposed to play Le Gris, but because of them getting Adam Driver, he then switched to Pierre.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I like that Adam Driver was Le Gris because he was very believable, and Ben Affleck, I think, did a great portrayal of Pierre of being just an absolute.
Yeah, Ben Affleck must have lost a lot of weight.
Yeah,
for that role.
Yeah, from Batman.
Yeah, because his face,
thin.
It was like really thin.
I did do a double take when I first saw him because I knew he was in the film. I didn't know what character he was playing.
His blonde hair.
Yeah, it was so weird. And that goatee. I don't think so.
But that gets to costume design.
It does. How
And
smooth.
It works.
That's right. We'll take it.
I liked how his character was like, yeah,
He was
here I
pretty
am.
flamboyant, yeah.
Yep, very flamboyant. I liked how the king, they did the costume, which makes sense.
Yep.
Obviously in the period even.
Exactly.
That the king would be, like, hey, look, I'm the king. I have the best stuff.
Yeah.
So I gave costume design a 4.4. And because the period, I obviously don't know the 1300s, 1370s, and 80s.
Right.
But it made sense, right? Like what they were wearing, all that kind of stuff made sense.
Right.
And that they would have these counts and kings that would be like, look, here I am.
That's right.
I'm somebody.
And so that made sense to me. That was great. The dress she went and had made.
Yep.
That made sense too.
It was red.
Right. And not only was it the red dress that I like, but it was that, like, hey, I'm going to be defiant here a little bit.
That's right.
And to the, like, norm or whatever. And so
Yeah.
that I like that in costumes.
Yep.
I don't care if it's, like, supposed to be.
And now, a quick break for you to think about all the things you love in life, like Skittles. I love Skittles. And now, back to the episode.
A period piece like this that has, color by the numbers type thing.
That's
because
right.
we know exactly what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
But you also know that there were these people that were progressive,
Right.
essentially, in the way they dressed and the hats they might have
Yeah.
wore. You know what I mean? And so I like that. So
Yeah,
that fit in really well with me.
I am in agreement. I really enjoyed the clothes. They made a lot of sense to each character. You kind of know what social setting and status they had because of what they were wearing. And we'll get to the king's character later, but he was just a maniacal, like just a crazy guy.
That he did a great job.
Yeah.
The actor.
Oh my gosh.
Of portraying that king.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, let's just get this guy like a side movie and just go off of his story because his crazy manner is like just his persona was so intriguing.
Yes, his facial tics and stuff too.
Yeah.
To show emotion. But
Yeah.
it was good.
So, I gave it a 4.2. I really enjoyed how everything fit together. It made sense to the time. Nothing like stuck out like no one was wearing a modern day hat. So, I mean, it all made sense to the time, and you could see each person's status, which I thought was, in a film like this, is important because you're really wanting to know, is this person significant? And one way, especially in those times, is by what they're wearing.
Absolutely. And I think, you talk about facial hair earlier. That was another sign, I think, back then, too, of like how you fit into the society or whatever. Right. And so that's probably why they made sure to have facial hair on this warrior.
That's right.
Right? Like, even though he couldn't grow his own, they had to make sure.
Get the Gorilla Glue.
Right, exactly. Remember that whole phase here, like 7-8 months ago, with people Gorilla Gluing.
Oh yeah,
their hair and cups to their face and stuff. It's
why not?
A weird deal, but
it was
it's totally that way.
Yeah.
And so that so that all did make sense. Like it just fit together very well. I thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
How about them shots? So
it was fun to recognize like the places in Dublin. I walked around Dublin and in that area and went and saw a bunch of things several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And to capture that on film, to make it look like it's back in that kind of time period, I thought they did a great job.
Yep.
There was a few things and scenes that I wasn't super impressed with, but like I think it was the Scotland scene where he was knighted and then they went into battle. There's a couple shots there that I'm like, I couldn't hit the rewind button. I was in the theater, but I wanted to like wait.
Well, you were the only one there. You could tell him to take a few reels back, please.
Right, kick it back 10, 15 seconds. I want to see that again. And so there was that in a couple of those scenes that I don't know. It just didn't look right to me.
Yeah.
I guess. So I gave it a 4.0.
Okay. That's for filming location or cinematography. Okay.
Yeah. Because the way they just captured it, I thought was a little off in a few of those areas. Most of it was pretty darn good.
Subtle, yeah.
When you have, these places that they filmed, the castles in France and some of that, these are tourist locations,
right? For
the most part, and to get it to look like old again and some of that is really well done.
Yeah, and seeing Notre Dame.
Yeah,
that's something else nowadays.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed how they did the shots. And my thought, or the reason I enjoyed it, was because it was split up into 3 different acts in 3 different perspectives. And so visually, and I thought they did with the cinematography of being able to capture the emotion, capture the same scenes 3 times, but making them feel very different because of the angles and what they were planning to shoot, I thought was fantastic. I think about the scene where they're meeting Le Gris after, he just had a son. Even Jean didn't want to go. Margaret says, we should really go. It would be really good to do. And they showed the scene first from Le Gris and seeing him dance, seeing Margaret dance with Jean, and how he thought he was flirting with him. And so that was the sign of advancement. And then they go to the 3rd act and they show Margaret's view. And what it was her talking to her husband and saying, "This guy is so easy to woo over. Watch this. I'll smirk and I'll smile." And so I really enjoyed some of those minute things that they were able to capture. And even the spoiler, the rape scene of when Le Gris was, raping her in his perspective compared to Marguerite's perspective, and seeing her facial and stuff like that. I thought they did a really cool job of being able to capture that and make me feel that these are different perspectives. So I give it a 4.5 because I really did enjoy that. I thought it was one of the more intriguing parts of the film, and I thought a lot of it was with.
And now, a quick break for you to think about how much you love the narrator of this podcast. Aw, yeah.
How they were shooting things and what characters they were choosing to portray and not portray.
Do you hear Jackie behind you?
I do. It's not me.
She's back there on the chair, chilling, snoring. Can you get that on the camera or not really? If you, Tyler, move aside a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Jackie's passed out. Probably had too much to drink or something over there.
Too many laps at the drinking fountain.
You are so odd.
Good stuff. Real life. I love it.
That's right.
I hear what you're saying. But again, that's where I was at with it. Some of them that didn't seemed a little maybe rushed, I suppose.
Right.
The weather might not have been very good because they were in Ireland.
They shot it pretty quick too.
Yeah, exactly. And so they didn't have time, and those locations can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So it just felt a little off.
Yeah.
Location.
And very important for anything.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I think some of what you talk about within the cinematography was very true. I felt like the time era matched. They did a good job of displaying each location and making it feel real. And I really kind of enjoyed, it was a give and take with the lighting. I enjoyed that all the lighting seemed natural, whether that was from like the sun or from like the candles or the fireplace. Sometimes it was hard to see in that. Again, I guess I should have talked that more in cinematography, but with filming locations, I thought it was cool how they did that stuff. And I thought the Court of Justice, where they were doing, it was like kind of the trial is what it was. I thought it was cool because it made sense, post-pandemic, post-Black Plague, that it was very barren inside. Mm-hmm. Just the tables and the chairs for the king and queen. And I thought, to me, that made sense because, they're talking about the issues of people having money and with taxes and stuff. So I thought it was even details like that where the floor was like you could see little pools of water and things mm-hmm. like that. I thought was really neat. So I gave it a 4.2. I really enjoyed what I saw. It seemed authentic. So that's what I can say about that.
Cool. I gave it a 4.7.
Okay.
Because I've been to a castle that was built in like 1180s, I believe it was, if memory serves. And
it's a long time ago.
Yeah, and they actually was in service up to about the 1920s.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's like from my perspective and visiting a castle like that and a few other things that I've seen in my life, it's super authentic to me. I mean, really, the locations looked like, hey, they're there.
Yeah.
This is real. There's no CGI. It's not like we're going to fabricate any of this kind of stuff. It was like legitimate locations.
Yeah.
And I liked that.
Yeah.
Even when they do build the sets or whatever, I'm okay with them building the sets, but most of the time they don't look authentic.
Right.
But this clearly was authentic.
Yeah.
And so that's why I scored it that high, because they just did a good job with it.
Yeah.
And clearly $100 million like budget, they're going to be able to go and do those things on the real locations.
Right.
And so I think that's also important to note that it's easier to do when you have the money to do it.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have to, fabricate something that's not real.
Right. I mean, imagine taking the whole crew to a castle. And I mean, some of these castles they talked about for locations, they're tourist places.
Yep.
So they're generally open to the public.
Yeah.
So clearly they have to pay for them.
Right.
It's not like, oh, this is an abandoned castle. Can we film on your land for a couple weeks? You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can build a set that looks pretty real for $50,000 or $60,000, but you bring your whole crew over to France in the castle for 2 weeks or whatever. I mean, let's be honest, that's going to be a whole lot more money.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that.
It looks real because it is real.
Exactly. So way to go on the locations.
All right. Did you feel any chemistry?
I can't believe that anybody would go into that, watch the whole thing from beginning to end, and say that they didn't have the acting skill figured out, that craft.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yes, it was.
You can't give it a perfect score.
No.
But there was a few places that were I think meant to look a lot different because of the different the different acts, different perspectives from people, but they didn't in a couple places, so that brought it down a few decimals for me. I gave it a 4.4.
Okay.
It's pretty hard to do what they did in the different acts and have you feel the emotions that you were able to feel.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
As far as the actors and the believability that they portrayed.
Yeah. Yeah, the one relationship I really struggled with in this movie was Jean and Le Gris' character.
Mm-hmm.
It really, again, I think maybe it was because of the times, but I mean, that relationship seemed to be built off of, Jean saving Le Gris' life.
Right.
And so then Le Gris feeling indebted to Jean, but really not showing it at all throughout the film.
Yes.
And
he sort of mentions it, in I guess in passing, but
right.
the actual act of is not there.
Yeah.
The act of like feeling indebted or
right.
like being honorable with him or whatever.
Yeah. And so even when I look at the context of that and how, they were feeling about each other, about the situation, I just can imagine after what Le Gris did to Jean, for Jean not to lash out more than what he did. I mean, obviously he challenges him to a duel and he kills him. Spoiler. But
write that down. we try to do the spoiler and we get it wrong like every time. I mean, let's just say, hey, this is our 9th episode. We're getting it figured out.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us with along this journey with us. But
if there's one consistent thing we do is we spoiler after the spoiler.
After the spoiler.
But I can't help but feel like he should have had more emotion in the moments of that, because he was a man of pride.
Yes.
And so I really struggled with that relationship and how that worked. But outside of that, I thought, Marguerite and Jean and Marguerite and
the mother,
Le Gris, the mother,
her mother-in-law,
yeah, to both Jean and Marguerite, and even I enjoyed Le Gris and Pierre. Mm-hmm. Again, a toxic relationship, but they fed off of each other, and you could see Pierre being influencing over Le Gris.
Yes,
and that was very evident. Le Gris, I don't think, realized that influence that was being passed over him by his friend and superior. And so I thought that relationship was really interesting. And so every other character, it was like, I'm intrigued. These stories make sense. I feel the emotion. I feel compelled to your story. So I gave it a 4.2. Again, the hardest one, I just struggled with, Jean and Le Gris, so Adam Driver and Matt Damon's characters, just because I felt there should have been more within that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being the length of the film, I suppose, already was like they couldn't do that.
Right.
Like to develop that a little bit more because they already had the 3 acts. But
right.
Yeah. No, I got you. That brings my overall rating to a 4.0. I want to hear yours, and I want to give an overall. We talked a little bit overall at the beginning of the podcast, but I want to talk a little bit overall of how I think, like, how important this is to real life,
right?
Even today. So, but I want to hear your overall where you're at.
So yeah, I gave it a 4.4. I thought the film was very different to anything that I have seen recently. And so the story, the narrative, the way things were shot, the 3 acts were very interesting to me. It made me think about even like just my own truth and how do I portray things in my mind about situations compared to the same situation. Like a lot of it was like just even between my wife and I, like how many times do I see things a certain way? But really, this is how she's seeing it. So how do I reach that middle ground in situations like that where we are 2 different people and we feel things differently and we experience things differently? And so I really enjoyed that, and even just my own stereotypes upon other people. So it made me think a little bit deeper, which again, it's been a while since a film has made me think deeper, for better or for worse.
Yeah, as on a personal level,
Right.
you're saying, yeah.
And again, I just the thing that I wish there was more of was just the emotion from Jean's character. Even I think with his wife, I just wish there would have been more, because he was a very prideful man. And so when things happened to him, I thought he just, again, this is my truth, I just feel like I feel like he would have responded more to some situations. But again, I really enjoyed how the narrative was told and made me think about the situation as a whole.
It really, for me, it brought a lot of things home. There's a book called Those Who Remain that I read, and in that book it says, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and this has been a meme, so to speak, floating around for a few years, because the book was written, I think, in 2017 or 16 or something like that. It says, it goes something like, strong men make good times make weak men make bad times, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this, I'm like, this Marguerite, and they use men as a term, not as in a male,
right?
As in a human,
right?
But it's so true in this story. I'm looking at it and like, this strong woman makes good times.
Yeah.
It takes people like her to change the reality of patriarchy.
Yeah.
Right? Did I say that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Patriarchy. Yeah. And so that was when I said earlier, I'm like really cheering her on for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, she went into this but not actually realizing the consequence, but knew the truth was important.
Yeah.
So.
And now, a quick break. And it's not a Kit Kat, sorry. And now, back to the episode with your host, Matt Logan.
In that place, I was like, wait, you want to back out? I'm trying to say this kind of,
right.
know, in a good way, but she's like, wait, I could lose my life?
Right.
I might want to back out of this, but now I can't. And so there was that part for me that I was a little bit like, deflated me a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think it was hard because the momentum was being built for that character to, I'm going to fight for the truth and for, my rights to that truth. And I think the hard part was, I wish the faltering didn't bother me. It showed me her human side of she just had a son, and living through it. If Jean dies, I'm gonna die, and this kid's gonna be an orphan.
Right.
So I don't mind the faltering just because of that realization.
Yeah.
But I wish she would have what, this is bigger than, continue to fight on of this is bigger.
Right, and I wouldn't say the faltering bothered me, that just more so the, hey, if I would have known the whole consequence, I probably wouldn't have done this.
Right.
To me, that's, I guess maybe that is faltering, I suppose, but to me that was well, didn't you think about, what this could mean?
Yeah.
It was I want it. Yeah, it was almost like I want the spotlight right now, but I don't want the consequence if the spotlight doesn't shine bright enough.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I felt a little bit deflated when she was like,
It definitely took the momentum away of what it felt like the story was building towards.
Yeah. It's real life.
It is.
I get that.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, if I found out I guess it would be really weird if my wife dueled somebody else and she died and then I lived, because I would be sad. But then finding out that I also die is well, I guess I don't know.
What?
I don't know how I'd respond to that situation of.
So let me ask you this: do you think he was guilty?
We're talking about Le Gris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was guilty.
Do you think she was guilty?
I think it's hard. Because again, you're dealing with people's truths.
First off, their science of sex was like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like comic to me.
Yeah.
Like, you remember that or not? I don't really want to talk about,
where
like,
you
specifics.
can't have a baby if
right.
the good old
so that was a little comical to me.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me and I hate to even bring this up, but it reminds me of what we're currently in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to know the science in 20 or 30 or 100 or 200 years from now much better than we know today.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why it was a little comical to me. I'm like, dude, we're like right in the middle of this same thing right now. We don't know.
Yeah.
We think we do.
Right.
But we really don't.
That's right.
And they thought they knew.
Exactly.
But they really didn't.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
so.
is why you can get Monty Python making fun of it all the time.
Right.
So, in all three perspectives, it did not look like it was consensual. And so I think he was definitely guilty of rape in that situation.
Yes.
So I think if that's what was being portrayed and if that was what was on trial, I think he was definitely guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little interesting to me how her friend betrayed her. I was like, whoa, you know, that. I mean, I guess back then it was probably more prominent for a friend like that to betray you in that way, simply because, you know, your life's on the line then as well.
Well, it makes, I think.
I mean, this literally back then was life and death stuff. Like,
right.
You said the wrong thing, you're dead.
And so I think part of that, I mean, they talk about.
And that's sad.
I
just want to be clear. Like,
yeah.
I don't think that's right.
No.
That was real.
Right. And so I think, again, it really just made me feel bad about the whole situation. Like, I'm happy we've come where we are, but like, just like the women as property, like, I think a lot of the betrayal was because the husband was like, come on, you got to say what I'm saying because we don't want to get caught up in this.
Yep.
And the man had control to do that.
Yep.
And the wife was obedient. You even look at Nicole, the mom character, and she was like, I went through the same stuff, didn't say anything, and you shouldn't say anything either.
Right.
And so,
and that to me is even more sad,
right,
than the things that happened.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, yeah, this is acceptable, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, as a human, you know what's okay and what's not okay.
And clearly she knew that.
Yes.
But was like, it's for the better of the family.
Right.
That was, again, the movie made me think about my own life, partly because that was that was a reality. And how are we continuing to improve it of treating people fairly and justly around us and not just assuming things or controlling people? Because, man, I mean, that's real. That narrative was true.
Yeah.
And it still holds true in certain places. And so,
yes.
It was hard.
It was hard.
I felt
yeah.
like a crappy person afterwards.
I know.
Man, I know.
Oh, right.
Man.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's how I felt.
Oh. And frustrating too. Like for me, I was a little frustrated. Like, how do we let some of the current things go on, like the sex trafficking? We know it's happening. You know
exactly.
And I thought to myself throughout it, like, well, what can I do?
Right.
Oh, nothing. Well, it's not true.
Right.
But you know what I mean? You feel a little bit like you don't have any power over it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress a little bit. But it does make you feel those things, so that I hope I change my attitude towards certain things.
Yeah.
Like sex trafficking.
Yep.
I mean, I really thought about that a lot in this because that's a current issue in today's world.
It is.
And the thing about the sex trafficking in today's world is it's done in a way that looks acceptable.
Yep.
It's the manipulation. It's
Right.
not outright control.
Yeah.
But it's manipulating, young women into these roles.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm doing it free will.
Right.
Well, for the last 5 years of your life,
This is
you
all
were
you've ever known.
manipulated
Yeah.
to this place, right? And so that's why I say this made me feel all the feels, man.
Yeah,
I
it did.
mean, it was like, I don't want that to happen on my watch.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
Wrap this thing up.
Hey, if you want to have a thought-provoking movie, I would highly encourage watching The Last Duel because it's not an easy film to watch.
Yes.
But it's good.
And let's end it there.
Let's do it.
See you soon.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call.
So it's done. It's done.